Hi, I'm Stacy Oakes, and I'm an organizer with 350 Seattle, and want to introduce the filmmakers for our event tonight, which is Yehow, which is the documentary, and our discussion and screening tonight. And so the people here with us that are the filmmakers, we have Sarah Holzknecht with 350 Eastside, Catherine Leggett with 350 Seattle, and Pamela Bond with Salish Sea Environmental Education and Action. And go ahead and actually turn it over right now to Pamela to give us a proper welcome.
Tuwal Gualapu, Tuwal Gualapu, Gualapu Taishad, Gualapu Taishad, Gualapu Beda, Gualapu Kayas, Gualapu Sapas, Gualapu Siaya. All you people, our relations, our children, our grandmas, our grandpas, all you people, I want you to understand that where we are here now is the Snohomish territory and the Duwapsh territory. This film was taken and filmed in the territory of the people of the inside and the Snohomish people. And if that's where you're at, you need to know that you are living and breathing on the bones of my ancestors, and you are on Indigenous land. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so much, Pamela, and thank you for welcoming us here to your land. And just a few reminders as we go through tonight. What we're going to be doing is, in just a moment, we'll be watching the film. It's about 13 minutes long, and then we're going to come back together, discuss the film. We have a few more things to share about PSE that aren't shown in the film, Puget Sound Energy, and then we'll take a nice lengthy time to get questions and answers with the audience and discuss whatever's on our mind after what we learn and what we see today. And just also want to take a moment to thank each of you for being here, and also to give a big thank you to all of the organizations that helped us promote this event tonight, other than those of us that are represented here. And so a big thank you to Native Daily Network, big thank you to Mazaska Talks, big thank yous to 350 Everett, 350 Tacoma, and 350 Spokane. We really appreciate your support in having this film be shown farther. And we'll go ahead and turn it over to Catherine to just let us know a little bit more about the film.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine, and I am also an organizer with 350 Seattle. I also wanted to mention that the cinematographer is with us tonight, so Howard Shack, and so he can answer some questions as well if you have any. I came onto the project in July in 2019, so over a year ago, when Sarah and Pamela approached me, and they had been working together already for some time. And what really struck me at our very first meeting was their relationship and connection, and their mutual respect and love for this place. We interviewed 3 incredible people, in addition to Pamela and Sarah, who you'll meet in the film: Althea Wilson, Tarika Powell, and Heather Price. I wanted to let you know that we shot about 7 hours of footage for this 13-minute film, and most of the filming took place in January and February of 2020. The premiere of the film was hosted by Native Daily Network in August, and this is our second screening, and we're really excited to bring together this community tonight. So with that, Neil, if you'd like to start the film. I actually also wanted to mention, as some of you may have already experienced screening videos over Zoom, there can be a lag in the picture and sometimes even the audio. So you should have all received, since you registered for the event, the URL to the Vimeo film with its password. So at your own time, you can also watch it without the lag that we might experience. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Yehow, Yehow, oh, hey, oh,
We are on Snohomish land. This is the place my ancestors walked.
oh,
Salalakam sista, staholcha. My name is Fighting Woman, and I am Snohomish. I'm the daughter of the sea monster man. This place is important because we're still here. Our people are still here.
My family's roots here only go back a few generations, but I could never imagine living anywhere else. Growing up, we would go for walks down the street to Little Bear Creek and splash in the water and look at the fish when they were there. I really felt such a strong connection.
They've killed a viable creek, you know. These yellow markers just kind of lead the way to poison.
The North Seattle lateral upgrade is a nearly 6-mile long pipeline expansion in South Snohomish County. It crosses 15 streams, which are home to threatened species of Chinook, sockeye, and coho salmon, as well as bull trout. It has really struck me, the gravity of it, that my connection to these places barely begins to scratch the surface of Indigenous communities that have been here since time immemorial.
We have learned over thousands of years how to navigate through the Salish Sea, how to hunt, how to fish, how to gather. That's who we are. We're people of the Salish Sea. One of the things that we have always had here was salmon. Always. There's never not been salmon.
One of my PhD advisors, Richard Gammon, was one of the first co-authors of the very first IPCC report in 1990. So I learned my climate science from him. Since then, emissions have continued to march upward. The concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has continued to accelerate upward. We haven't slowed down at all. Now, most of those emissions are coming from burning of fossil fuels, and a big proportion of that is in our energy sector. And that means that in the world, we're getting our energy from things like coal and oil and natural gas and fracked gas in particular. And those all emit greenhouse gases. They all emit carbon dioxide, and they also emit methane.
There's this misconception that so-called natural gas is a bridge fuel, that it's cleaner than burning coal to produce heat and power. And unfortunately, it is putting methane into our atmosphere that is far more intense than carbon dioxide in terms of heat trapping properties.
The North Seattle pipeline expansion is a perfect example of how the industry is trying to expand and get us locked in under other pretenses. Puget Sound Energy and the Williams companies like to present this project as a safety upgrade, when in fact it is a massive expansion. The carbon dioxide equivalent of burning all the gas that would move through that larger pipeline is greater than what's produced by this entire city of Seattle.
I actually went out to look to see what they were doing because I had heard that they were very close to homes, and I was just flabbergasted that someone could do that. Put a 20-inch pipe of dirty frack gas that close to residences.
In reality, it's like knowingly bringing a bomb into your house. The pipeline runs as little as 11 feet from people's homes and has a blast radius of 150 feet. We're piping a highly combustible gas into our homes and businesses, and when it goes wrong, it goes really, really wrong. The over 3 million miles of aging natural gas infrastructure has somewhat of a terrible record for incidents, with a fire or explosion happening on average every 4 days in this country.
When I'm describing the leak rate of methane from fracking, I'm talking about the gas is leaking out as it's being fracked. As it's being transported through the pipes, it can leak. And then also, when a person turns on the pilot light, gas comes out before it's lit. And that gas that comes out, that is leaking. And the methane molecules that are fracked gas, they leak. They leak at every point from extraction to transport to use. The methane molecule, compared to a carbon dioxide molecule, over about a 20-year period is 86 times more potent as a greenhouse gas.
Puget Sound Energy is a for-profit, majority foreign-owned corporation, putting profits before our communities and before the critical need at this point, really, to draw down our carbon emissions.
When the salmon are gone, so are we. They are our relatives, and they are so worth fighting for. They come up these creeks every year, following the Salmon King, to sacrifice themselves for us so that we might live. And we bring their bones back to the water so that they can live again. It's all part of traditional ecological knowledge, that something we've done for millennia upon millennia.
I accredit a lot of the push in Indigenous knowledge and the sciences to the National Science Foundation, because they really do put a lot of energy and focus on what Indigenous people do know and have understood for a very long period of time, and they're bringing that out into Western society today.
The science is clear. We have to reduce our emission of greenhouse gases from fossil fuels by half by 2030 if we want to keep the heating of our planet to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and likely we're headed for much higher than that because we're not making the changes that we need, and the fossil fuel industry is not helping us to make the changes that we need.
There are so many solutions out there that we just need to implement, and we need to do it as fast as possible and direct as many resources as possible there. And the first piece is electrification. as much as we can dial back our natural gas usage, we're putting less methane into the atmosphere. The second part of that is that as we are stepping up our energy needs on the electric power grid, we need to be building out distributed generation as much as possible. And the more that our decision makers, our legislators and policymakers hear from us, the more likely they're going to be open to making the switch and telling our utilities that natural gas-fired power is no longer acceptable.
There's not enough riparian planted here. There really is not. I don't see salal, I don't see Oregon grape, I don't see ferns, I don't see anything. If you're gonna destroy something, you need to put it back. You need to make it whole.
When you talk about the infringements of things like fracking, pipelines, they're all infringements on who we are as Indian people. If you continually pick and pick and pick at the environment, you're picking and picking and picking at us.
I feel better when we can come together. That's where the word Yehow comes from. To push forward together. It means that it can only be completed together. And when I can see an ally and I can see a group of people, then I can get on board and feel good about that, about fighting for the future. Yehow, it's everything. Water is life, but Yehow is everything.
Oh, Yehow, Yehow, oh, eh, oh, Yehow, Yehow, oh, eh, hey, hey.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I thought I would start off with a few questions to Pamela and Sarah. I have 3 questions, and then I'll hand it back over to Stacy. And please know that at the end, around 8 o'clock, we'll have a whole half hour for questions from all of you. And you're welcome to start putting those questions in the chat if you'd like, or at 8 o'clock, we'll have you raise your hand and I can help facilitate that. But the first question I had for both Pamela and Sarah is about the campaign work that you did. When we started filming, much of your kind of on the ground campaign work had already happened, and we started filming once the construction began. So I was wondering if you could talk about that work and give an example or two of the campaign that you led.
Pamela, would you like to share first, or shall I? I think you're on mute, Pamela.
I feel like Sarah did way more, but I think it was it was a hugely joint effort. But we at one point we'd gotten the community together and tried to educate the community about the dangers of gas coming into their homes. We had postcards, and we also Sarah formulated some really great letters that that our tribe signed on to try and stop this dirty frack gas pipeline from coming in into Snohomish County.
Yeah, so we had a coalition. Our partners were honored at the end of the film that we're all working together to stop this project. And a lot of the work that we did was to try to stop the permitting of it with primarily Snohomish County, who is the lead state Environmental Protection Act agency for this project. So we were, meeting with the county. We had letters from our coalition detailing our concerns, and we're really pointing to the fact that the greenhouse gas emissions were not being properly considered and evaluated. That if you're looking at how much the gas use is being stepped up just for this particular area of pipe expansion, you're not also considering the additional leakage all the way back through the transmission system to the source, which is often fracking, which has its own set of environmental repercussions. So we had several opportunities where we were encouraging folks to comment, community forum, as Pamela mentioned, and now we're continuing that work of educating people about gas and its dangers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I want to mention that in the chat is the URL for the film and the password in case you want to copy that and watch it on your own time. I did get a note that my audio is low, so I'll try to speak loudly for everyone to hear me. Pamela, this question is for you. So I really had an incredible experience working with you and hearing your knowledge and all that you brought in terms of the ecological knowledge. And you talk about the destruction of the habitat, which is very painful to see in the film. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, and perhaps to start, what is the most significant destruction of that habitat in your mind?
Well, the pipeline and all of its and the bitumen that they use to solidify wet, soggy soil underneath a stream or a creek is seeps out. It's poison, and that's disastrous and horrific. And then the whole riparian area, needs to be absolutely replaced, because salmon eggs don't hatch or survive if the water isn't 51 or 52 degrees. And so if you have no shade, you have no riparian, how are you going to have a salmon run? And salmon are a cornerstone species for this part of the Salish Sea. And if when they're gone, we're gone. I keep telling people, if they're gone, we're gone.
For this project, they dammed each of these 15 streams and had a flume directing the stream as they were laying the pipeline. There was a cutoff date that they could no longer be disturbing the streams. And I took water samples from just off of Little Bear Creek, the area where you saw in the film, the day before that timeline was supposed to run out, and there was diesel and heavy oil in the water, in like a puddle just outside the creek. So with all this heavy equipment driving around to get this pipeline installed, I mean, I would argue that the environmental impacts to the salmon in particular are unavoidable.
Yeah.
And this is my last question, and then I'll hand it to Stacy. So I know that PSC, well, ultimately PSC was given this permit, and I'm wondering what kind of sneaky ways they were able to do this, considering all the documentation that was submitted, and particularly around the environmental damage.
Yeah, great question. So we felt like we had quite a win actually at one point in this campaign, where Snohomish County did say that you need to give a full assessment of the greenhouse gas emissions that will be caused by this project. And response that came back from the Williams company, who is building out the pipeline, and PSC was also backing it as well, was that the emissions would not be significant, quote unquote, because though the capacity of the pipeline would be expanded, they didn't intend to use that full capacity. So they were putting in a bigger pipe, but they weren't going to, to really use that much gas, and therefore the emissions wouldn't be significant enough to really be concerned.
Right, and that's what they said in Tacoma too.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, for this particular case, Boeing is another user of this pipeline, and they declined to back this project. They didn't need an increased supply of gas. And it is common practice for industrial users for a utility to make an agreement with an industrial user to say, well, when we have these really cold days and everybody's, cranking up their furnace at home, we need you to step down your usage. There were other alternatives to what was done, but what we ultimately heard from the county was that there was not policy in place for them to deny the permit, that if they did deny the permit, they would have gotten sued. So that became a new area of focus for us. We need to change the policy. So some of the coalition members have continued that work forward to now.
Interestingly enough, Boeing is leaving for the Carolinas. That facility isn't even, that facility is slowly shutting down.
Thank you both. Stacy, I'll hand it to you now. And just if everyone could make sure they're on mute, that will help. Thank you.
Yeah, and Neil, if you wouldn't mind just bringing up the slides actually really quick. I have a few slides to just go with the little bit more education around some of the other things that PSE is doing. And I think one of the reasons, not only is this just the same company, doing the project in Tacoma that's already been mentioned once or twice, they have this history of really bad, kind of shady business practices. Let's see, go ahead and go to the slide that says PSE bad actor, Neil. There we go, perfect. So PSE basically really is kind of a bad apple as far as a corporate actor. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. The Tacoma LNG facility, if you're not aware, is basically a fracked gas project that's being built on the ancestral tide flats of the Puyallup tribe by Puget Sound Energy. It's under construction currently and also under a legal appeal that will be heard in March of 2021. So some of the similarities that we really wanted to bring to light is to kind of show that this isn't a one-off when they do things like what Sarah and Pamela were talking about. Things like the government being scared of being sued after getting talked into being the lead permitting agency. The city of Tacoma, completely unqualified for this massive facility down there, became the lead agency. They're the people that could say they needed more studies or how significant different things are. And of course they're not. And they have said, well, we don't want to get sued by PSE, so we can't say no. So kind of same boat there. And we also look at some other similarities there that were already mentioned as far as a little bit of making up some data numbers, basically. There's the data that was used for this facility really undercounted the greenhouse gas emissions. It also misinformed what the project really was. So you see those same similarities coming back. And with that facility as well, you're going to see some really ugly things happening, like the Tacoma Human Rights Commission recommended that there needed to be more safety and health and environmental analysis done based on its impact to two different groups that are historically marginalized, which is the Puyallup tribe was named specifically, and the 1,500 people housed daily in the for-profit Northwest Detention Center, less than 2 miles away from the facility. And this facility is in an area with a ton of safety concerns near a huge population, and they're building it anyway. And that construction began 2 years before it was legally permitted. So we see a lot of kind of that bad actor behavior that's, you know, we wouldn't be able to build a house without a permit, but they can build an 8 million gallon fracked gas tank. And we even saw some intimidation tactics used on dissenting community members. That was really, really unnerving to kind of see that in motion, and a permitting process that ended up being designed to avoid and mislead public participation. And Tarika Powell, who you saw in that film, is actually, there's court testimony of her as an expert witness saying that the city of Tacoma on purpose avoided and misled the public. We can go ahead to the next slide. So along with that Tacoma LNG facility that a lot of people in this call maybe already know is not great, there is a bunch of other stuff PSE is doing that we might not be as aware of. And some of those things are meddling in our laws, our elections, our public opinion. And that's why these rules and these policies are in their favor. Surprise. So how much money did they spend on lobbying between 2016 and 2018? They spent over $1,742,000 in Olympia. So that's just on politics in Washington. They outspent Amazon. And also that money that they're going to give in political campaign contributions, they give to both Democrat and Republican alike. They give to small races and large races. And just to get an idea there, between 2008 and 2018, they donated $665,000 to candidates just in Washington state. Again, outspending Amazon. And also, in a really shady move recently, they came up with a public relations campaign that was aimed at children. There's coloring pages, there's online games, about how to run from a gas leak and how to look for fire extinguishers. And so just definitely kind of tobacco and fossil fuel industry use a lot of the same advertising tactics. And we also see public relations campaigns that are designed to stop gas from being phased out. There's a group that formed called Partners for Energy Progress. Definitely be very leery of them. And basically what they are set up to do is, as locations get tired of waiting for the transition to happen and decide they're going to go to, say, their city or county council and have all new buildings not be able to start having gas in them. Well, this Partners for Energy Progress is about dumping money and being against that. And you're going to see some really high quality propaganda coming out against that. Tons of TV ads, really glossy, fancy handouts went out constantly in Tacoma during 2018. There were slanted phone surveys. And then we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Another thing they really dump money into is ballot initiatives. So we see interference with public power efforts. You might be saying, man, we should run away from PSE if we have them. And a lot of different counties have actually tried to do that by doing public initiatives, by getting it onto the ballot. And 2008, 3 different counties tried. PSE defeated 2 of them, but Jefferson County was able to decide to get rid of PSE and create a public utility district where you're not beholden to shareholders trying to make money. You are getting to elect the people that pick your power, and they put that money back into making sure that maintenance is done so we don't have leaks of things, and going with new cutting edge things, because that is actually a better investment than pushing more old infrastructure on us. And so in Thurston County in 2012, they tried this, and PSE made it the most expensive election in Thurston County history, spending over $400,000 in that one county on this ballot initiative. And you might be wondering where they get all that money. They charge us as ratepayers. So one of the ways that they're able to defeat these measures is by spreading misinformation. They have all that money to send all the glossy handouts and do all the commercials. They incite fear that the rates will go up when actually PSE is one of the most expensive utilities in all of Washington. But on a hopeful note, just because their tricks worked in the past, it doesn't have to work now. So Thurston County is in the process of trying again. You can find out more at powertothepublic.org. And East King County PUD is also working on a ballot initiative, and Sarah is much closer to that than I am. So in just a few moments, when we start looking at what we can do to take action, we'll learn a little bit more about that. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And I'm gonna go ahead and hand it over to Catherine, who's, I believe, given us a lowdown, or it might be to Sarah first about the PUD.
Yeah, we do have a few resources and ways to take action before we head on over to more questions. Neil, could you take it to the next slide? Okay, this is Sarah.
Great. So Stacy mentioned this just briefly. This is an effort that I've been involved in for a little more than a year now. With a wonderful group of people who we've come together from a variety of backgrounds and really identified that PSE is not listening to what their communities are asking for. And if you look at the power generation that it mix in some of our local public utility districts, for example, Snohomish County Public Utility District, where I'm located, they have a tidal power pilot project currently. They have a microgrid project where they're incorporating vehicle to grid technology, some really forward-thinking projects, as well as having commissioners that we vote in. So we recognized the many benefits of having a public utility district versus PSE's model, and have been working to get this initiative on the ballot. Efforts were underway earlier this year, and unfortunately, social distancing being what it is not conducive to getting signatures. We have sort of regrouped, and King County Board of Elections is allowing electronic signatures. We're working on getting that set up currently. And so we are building a coalition and support for this initiative. It will be on the ballot either in 2021 or 2022. We're still working through the feasibility of that. Obviously, COVID has changed everything. But you can visit our website here for more information. And we are currently looking for volunteers. We're also looking for commissioners for this new utility district, and they need to be located within this utility district. So if you yourself would be a good fit for a future PUD commissioner, or you know somebody that would be, please email. You can either email to info@ekc-pud or to Barbara, whose email address is here. But this is a very exciting opportunity for us to switch away from PSC's for-profit business model.
Okay, next slide, Neil. So another way we can take action is by calling local and state legislators. So 350 Washington is a network of 350 local groups around Washington state. There are currently 12 local groups all around the state. And basically we push for bold climate policy during the legislative session. And if you go to our website here that I've listed, you can find out more information, but also just fill out a form. And once you fill out that form, you will get 2 emails a week during the legislative session that are completely specific to climate bills, many of which are around this topic, building electrification, for example. And we basically will make it very easy, very clear who to call that week, because this particular bill will be either in a hearing of some sort or committees are speaking to it, so it's relevant for that week. So we make it easy, and this group has been around for a few years. This will be, I think, the 4th year. And last year in 2020, this team made over 6,000 individual legislative contacts. So, you know, our ultimate goal is to make sure climate bills are pushed and people in Olympia hear about these, and that's our job to make these calls and send these emails. And the next slide. And this is for you, Stacy.
Yeah, and the Tacoma LNG resistance is also somewhere that's a really good use of energy at this moment. So this fight is far from over. We do have the legal appeal pending, and that legal appeal is with both the Puyallup tribe, a sovereign nation, as well as Earth Justice, representing a handful of environmental, health, and social justice organizations. And that appeal is being heard in March of 2021. So the best thing we can be doing right now is winning in the court of public opinion. So every time we mention the LNG publicly, every time we put it on social media, every time we bring it up to our elected officials, it helps that fight. Every time we bring up the importance of Indigenous sovereignty, it helps that fight. And so there's a lot of ways that we can be helpful right now. And if you want to just kind of check stuff out on your own, we do have some asks up on our website, which is 350seattle.org/resistance-no-LNG. We'll put it in the chat in a moment. And at that website, you can actually just learn more about the project. There's links to other sources, and there's also a few take actions stuck right up on there. And another way to stay up to date is to join our listserv, where we put out any updates that happen, as well as calls to action, which we've been putting out frequently. And we also plan to have quite a few events between now and March. And to do that, to subscribe to that, you can actually just send an email with anything written on it to standwithpuyallup-subscribe@lists.350seattle.org. And again, I'll put that in the chat. And you'll also be getting a follow-up email for everybody that registered over the next few days. So if you miss anything here today on the links, we will be emailing them out. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. And we do have a specific day of action coming up as well. And that is, we've been doing some hashtag frack off PSE days and frack off Fridays. So Friday, October 30th is our next frack off PSE day. And we invite you all to join us and invite your friends to join us or any organizations that you're part of. And we have a lot of tools to help you do that. Basically what we do on those days is we have a social media storm. So when you concentrate attention, it can really amplify how far that message gets. So we ask people to use the hashtag FrackOffPSE and also to tag PSE to make sure that they get to see how many people are sharing our concerns and our thoughts. This particular October Frack Off PSE Day, we have created a quiz to help educate people on PSE's tricks. And if you fill out the quiz, regardless of your answers being correct or not, you will get into a drawing to win some treats from Power Pass Frack Gas. So we'll have kind of little goodies that we can mail out to folks. So everybody that shares the survey might be in the drawing. And also it really helps us to get the message out in a fun way, because we need to be able to help spot those dirty tricks that'll be in those advertisements. We need to be able to help explain to our friends why what PSE is putting out there isn't correct. And you can also use that day to make your own post about what's most important to you about PSE. And maybe you want to talk to them about what happened with the NSLU pipeline. Maybe it's the Tacoma LNG. Maybe it's advertising towards our kids, whatever it is. You can also create your own. And we have an awesome social media guide that has memes in it. It has language. It has the link to share the quiz and so much more. And you can find that at bit.ly/PSE media guide, and the G in guide is capitalized as well as PSE. So we'll put all those links in the chat, and please join us for that. And if you're on 350 Seattle's email list, you'll also be getting an email probably that day. So, and next slide. Thank you.
So now we can, we'd love to hear from all of you. We have a lot of people on the call, and I know Pamela and Sarah are curious to get your questions. There's been some in the chat. So you can either continue to type them in the chat, and I'll try my best to help monitor that. And then also you can use the raise hand function, and I'll monitor that as well. So I wanted to start. I know that I did see a question or a hand raised earlier by Bradley Barton. If you'd like to raise your hand again, I see it's not up there yet or right now, but if you want to raise your hand again, I can come to you. But there was one question actually earlier that I thought was a good one from Michaela around identifying how did you identify the point people to pressure, and how did you pressure them? And I know, Sarah, you answered that in the chat, but I thought we could start off with that question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's a great question. So we started with the folks in the permitting department that were responsible for kind of the nitty-gritty of the permitting process at Snohomish County. And we raised our concerns there, had folks from various organizations within the coalition, folks representing concerns over climate, over salmon, and environmental concerns. We also had folks, of course, indigenous and faith communities, and then we kind of proceeded sort of up the chain of command, eventually meeting with Snohomish County Executive Summers and some of the leadership team about this project and the climate concerns. And really, as I mentioned earlier, from that, it became clear that perhaps they heard our concerns, but the policy didn't allow for them to deny this permit, unfortunately. So as I mentioned earlier, we've sort of been continuing that work forward. We need to change the policy, and you probably saw at the end of the film, Department of Ecology does have a new greenhouse gas assessment rulemaking that's actually going on. It's in process right now. So I'll put a link in the chat. This is another opportunity for action that I recently found out about. There's an upcoming hearing for, I believe, in just a couple of weeks. So this would be another great way to engage and make your voice heard about the need to get off of gas. I'll put that in the chat now.
Thank you. Polly has a question. Where can we see a list of the Washington campaign donations made by PSC? Stacy, since that was in your slide, unless either Pamela or Sarah know that.
Yeah, I can give you a little bit of info on that. And actually, that all of the information that I shared was actually out of news articles that have come out over the last few years of a few news outlets actually trying to give us a little bit of a heads up of what PSE is up to, and had really looked into all those contributions. I myself am not usually someone who's looking up those numbers personally, so I don't have a best site to show you. I believe there is a just a PDC, maybe somebody else on knows, maybe, and see a few other awesome people in the audience like Mary Rollins. Thank you, Neil. pdc.wa.gov. And that way you can type stuff in. The tricky part too, though, is that you can't only look up Puget Sound Energy. Technically, they don't own the Tacoma LNG even. There's a shell company that could go bankrupt and walk away in case of a disaster. Another dirty trick. That's Puget LNG. So there's all these other little names that companies could be under. And then also what you're going to see nowadays too is that all of their executives each donated personally, and potentially on some levels you'll even find lower level staff that there's just a whole lot of contributions there as well. So it can be tricky, but the obvious ones you can look for, or if you can look up what those, say, executives' names are, things like that. Sometimes you can go even farther. And you also have to look for PAC money and know what PACs PSE donates to. So you can look for those PACs to pop up in different electeds' backgrounds as well. And a fun fact to go with electeds and money, if you didn't already know this, there is the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge. And that basically is something that electeds can take to say, I'm not going to take fossil fuel money. Puget Sound Energy is on that list nationally. So if you have folks that are like, yeah, I'm taking the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge as an elected, make sure that they know that our local our local company is on that list, and they need to give that money back if they took PSC money.
Great, thank you. Let's see. Scott Patterson had a question. Let me find it. There's been some additional questions since then. Okay, the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission mission is, quote, to protect the people of Washington by ensuring that investor-owned utility and transportation services are safe, available, reliable, and fairly priced. Have they been contacted about PSC? And if so, what has been their response?
Did you want me to take that one again? We've definitely, as Tacoma LNG Resistance, have definitely interacted with the UTC on numerous occasions. The first time they were a little surprised, and actually I think ended up somewhat changing some of their structure of their meetings afterwards, after we had like 300 people show up one time for something where they usually get a handful of people. So they definitely are aware that people were upset about the Tacoma LNG project and potentially having to pay 43% of the construction costs for something that would only have about 2% residential use. So basically kind of stealing ratepayer money. which is residential customers. So there was also a recent February, there was a comment period with the UTC with PSE asking for more rate increases. And during that time, we helped get, I think, around somewhere between 400 and 600 comments into the UTC, and a lot of them mentioning both that we shouldn't be paying for the Tacoma LNG project, but also that we should not be forced to have our money be complicit in what fracking causes, that we shouldn't have our money making us complicit in man camps, that we shouldn't have our money making us complicit in the poisoning of drinking water and of taking away our children's future when we have no choice, when they're kind of like a monopoly. So it doesn't hurt to keep telling them anytime there's open stuff, but they should know. And just in case folks are wondering, that UTC is made up of 3 people appointed by Governor Inslee. So he gets to choose the quality of folks that are on that board of people. And in a slight win, the most recent decision after that last set of comments, PSE asked for about an 8% or so raised in both gas rates and electric rates, and they were awarded less than 1% and less than 2%, which normally they're given what they ask for. So a little kudos to everybody who sent in comments for that. Maybe we're finally kind of getting somewhere in that vicinity as well. So it's worth it to try.
Thank you. I wanted to ask this question from Michaela. And again, Michaela, if you want to ask the question, please feel free to come off mute as well. But the question is, are there any insider activists at PSE, like the climate activists in Amazon?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, I don't know if others have an awareness of somebody.
I apologize. Can you repeat that again to me, just so I can?
Sure. Yeah.
I apologize.
Sure, no problem. So the question is, does anyone know if there are insider activists at PSE, working within PSE, like the climate activists who work within Amazon?
Yeah, no, I am completely unaware of that. I know that there are, I know some people who have family members that work for PSE who are actively trying to figure out how not to have to work for PSE, and and live with themselves and figure out other ways to take care of their families. And that's a huge issue. But I don't know about activists in PSE. I wish I was a mole.
I've been told my audio is still really low. So Stacy, do you want to take over? I was going to ask,
We can hear you now.
Oh yeah? Okay. All right. I'm gonna do this one from Polly. I just want to double check that it's a question. Apologies. I don't think it's a long comment from Polly here.
I think that one's a quote copied
Okay.
from a source about like some more of the great reasons why you'd want public power instead of somebody like PSE that is trying to make money for shareholders. And it talks about the power sources. Yeah. One of basically the part of the gist is that you get to they choose where their power sources come from. There's like this open market, right? And they're like, I'll take power from you. I'll take power from you, right? And so that's where PSE gets a lot of its power. And so if we had public utility district commissioners, they would just be the ones doing that. We'll take this kind of power. We'll take this kind of power. So that's where they would be able to make better choices. One, they'd be accountable to us because we elect them. And two, you'll find a lot of people in PSE and other gas utilities have a vested interest personally in choosing the gas when they're like, I'll take this kind of energy. So you're kind of taking that conflict of interest out usually when you go with a PUD, as long as people in your area are paying attention and vote. And a surprisingly large swath of Washington actually is public utility districts. So it's not a weird or uncommon. I'm up in Snohomish County, and it's, you know, cheaper than when I was on PSE, for sure.
I'd like to remind people that if you have PSE in your home, you're paying for genocide. Let me say that again. If you have PSE in your home, you are paying for the genocide of the land, an environmental genocide, a cultural genocide for indigenous people, and a human genocide. And a mostly indigenous genocide, again, because all of these places, especially the Alberta tar sands, which PSE has admitted publicly to getting their dirty fracked gas from, you are helping to pay for genocide. Cut PSE off, relatives.
Yeah,
and an earlier comment was about city officials, and I would say that these lower status employees of PSE are donating at $300 or $250 to $500 a pop.
Danny,
Just people like the Seattle
Danny,
City Council.
come here. I'm off mute. I'm off the talk.
You're not muted. Somebody mute.
This is a friend of mine. You can see her. She can't hear us.
Oh, we can hear you.
Oh no, I'm sorry. How do I unhear you? I'm gonna
push that button, girl. Somebody else push that button.
Got it, Lucy. You got it.
You got it.
Awesome.
So I just, those officials are getting paid, and when Councilwoman Sawant's initiative was going forward regarding getting PSE out of Seattle, there was a big overtaking where Councilwoman Juarez had taken word for word off of a PSE website and put it into this document. And so we know at that time when we looked if there were PSE donations to Ms. Juarez and other council people, only 3 Seattle council members had not taken money or refused money from PSE. So I think people need to know that. And it'd be interesting to know how many Snohomish County council people are taking money from PSE. I think we should look into that. I think it's important when we want to talk to city officials again about if they're on the side of the people or if they're on the side of their pocket. Dave Sumners.
Yeah, and Pamela, I think you bring up a really good point about the tremendous amount of power that we have as consumers to switch off of gas power. I shared in the chat a moment ago an article in the Atlantic just from today, actually, that profiles Heather Price, who was involved in our film, and how she switched off of gas, and her son, his asthma improved dramatically. So one piece, and this article, I highly recommend it, delves a lot deeper into this. It's a piece that I think we really need to focus in on with gas, that there are huge health impacts. And unfortunately, they are more, children are more affected than adults. If you think about a gas range and you have a kid running around, they're just closer to where the gas is being burned. They're breathing more of the particulate that the gas is put into the air. And it's also an equity issue. If you don't have a very good range hood that is, ventilating when you're burning gas, or maybe you don't want to use your ventilation because it's cold outside and you don't want all that warm air that you paid for heating to get sucked out of your home, then the indoor air quality gets dramatically worsened with nitrogen dioxide and other contaminants in the air. So one way that we, I think, can kind of reframe this issue and reframe this narrative around natural gas is that not only is it, hugely impactful to our climate, it's also impactful to our health in our own homes when we're using these ranges and furnaces.
Absolutely. And I think something else we need to do is start providing resources for people to switch, even if it just starts at that pipe at the beginning of the sidewalk going up to your home. Ways for people to get affordable electrified appliances, like places like Habitat for Humanity and other grantors who help people obtain appliances. I think that some of those things we could look into and help share also. It's just really important, I think, to start the switch and cut PSE off at every angle. We don't want to make them any more money, and we don't want our dollars going to genocide.
Yeah.
And one more thing to add in around cooking with it in your homes. Well, actually two things. One is that if you don't have the ability to change your whole say stove for the cooktop part that you'd be doing, there's a lot of plug-in single burner or double burner, just induction electric things that you could have. So you could, just have that sitting on your counter and use that when you're going to be turning on I'm going to be making, one dish or so on the stove, and that would cut down on your pollution, as well as, like Pamela says, cut down on your complicitness in those harms from fracked gas, which is genocide and, not consequences that we can keep kind of pushing off out of our mind. So so that's kind of a cheap fix for at least part of your cooking and part of your health. And another just kind of tidbit, because I'm full of PSE dirty tricks. Another way that PSE and other gas companies are trying to misinformation you is that they actually pay YouTube influencers to talk about how great it is to cook with gas and to put out videos of them cooking with gas. And so you're going to kind of see that level too. My husband likes to watch cooking shows, and I notice how often they're like really glorifying the gas stoves and those too, and wonder who's backing those shows. So anyway,
thank you, Stacey. That was awesome. That's exactly what happens with me. And I tell everybody I said, I've been a chef for 30 years. I can cook just as well on an electric stove. And just keep putting that out. Obviously, I don't have the money and the backing to demystify that, but it certainly is just one person at a time. Why do you need gas? Well, people say I need it. Well, why? And then start to talk about the genocidal properties, as she so brilliantly said. This is how it happens. We took a lot of things for granted, 30, 40 years ago. And those things have changed, and they've changed because people have opened their minds to that change. And I really believe that's the way to go here. So thank you. That's exactly what happens to me when I'm watching cooking shows too. So thanks.
I wanted to get in this question from Bill Phipps. Can you explain the PSC move? It's a little bit, well, it's about PSC. So can you explain the PSC move to sell the coal strip mine in Montana and then turn around and buy power from the new owner? If anyone knows a little bit about that.
Yeah, I just provided public comment last week at one of their hearings on this for the coal strip units 3 and 4, that they would be selling them for $1 along with a lot of the transmission assets that really, I would argue, we need for renewables in the future. And so the UTC was taking comment last week. The majority of the comments, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is the UTC hearing from us about PSE. And the majority of the comments in the session I was in, and I heard in the other session as well, were folks very much opposed to this sale being allowed to proceed from all over our region. So they're sort of shirking their duty under the CETA, the Clean Energy Transformation Act, to transition off of coal, and instead attempting to sell these units at Coal Strip that they have a partial ownership in, which would allow that coal-fired power to be part of their energy mix through, I believe it's like 2042, rather than, I think 2025 is the year that they're supposed to be transitioning off it. And I don't know if others have more they want to add to that.
It's just their sneaky tactics, right? They want you to think that they're selling that off. They're slowly getting rid of that, but then they're buying it back. It's like their gas credits that they fool mostly elderly people with. It's just, to me, it appears to be just another trick tactic, like those gas credits, making people think that they're helping. It's just, and they're not, selling something off for $1 and then getting a tax break for it and then buying it back, still having their hands in dirty fuel.
So we have time for a couple more questions. If anyone has something, I see a thread going around about the heat pumps and how to electrify. So that's good. But I don't see any other questions.
May I make a comment, Catherine?
Yes,
Hi.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
I was just thinking about this question of where to find allies and kind of how to harness well-intentioned people, inside PSC employees. Like we were saying, a lot of employees that's their job and they have to work, and there's a lot of cognitive dissonance, I'm sure, in there. And I know that PSC does have like this whole group that's working on EVs, trying to promote EVs and the charging stations that they're going to be building and so forth. And that might be a place to kind of try to work together on some things as a way of getting to know employees and getting to, I think if you do build a spirit of cooperation on one little part of it, eventually you just need them to work with you, unless we could drive them out of business somehow. But that might be an entry. And I think talking to customers, a lot of customers don't know how much fossil fuel. They think it's like hydropower, Washington State. Like they think they're using clean energy and they're not. And so talking to customers about EVs, about electrifying their homes so that, down the line when they do get, solar panels, or gas gets much more expensive because we're going to have to get away from gas, that they're going to be in a position to save a lot of money if they've electrified. And another kind of ally would be these companies that installed new furnaces. I know when we were getting rid of our oil furnace, first thing when we moved into our home, got rid of the oil furnace, and we had all these different quotes from companies, and they were really pushing me towards gas, and they were like, "Oh, gas is cheap," and blah blah blah. And I wasn't having it, but if I didn't know, if I didn't already have like my environmental ideas, they would have pushed me into a gas furnace. And so to talk to those, Ballard Natural Gas company, which installed our heat pump, but to talk to them about like maybe change your name or maybe like come to a free seminar and learn about what it means to promote natural gas with this lens of genocide and poisoning and everything. So I think there are a lot of potential allies out there, and I hope we can build a coalition to,
I,
not always just be butting heads and, like you said, not feeling like protest, which doesn't necessarily help the other side change in a,
right.
without losing face completely. So
something something I'm recently getting a revelation on, that I'm being taught, is that protesters want change, right? We protest, but people who are protecting, we don't want change like that, right? And you're using the word feeling a lot, how we feel, and the way we feel is going to bring us to act, to protect, right? And so I think that when we are thinking about the way we're going to protect the land, the way we're going to protect our homes, the way we're going to protect the water, the air, our own spirits, because those things aren't good, right? When they're dirty. And we're going to have to do it with respect, wisdom, generosity, and courage. So if we want to change an executive mind, we want to know how he feels. We want to change the way they feel about what they're doing. And we want to do it with respect, right? And we're going to, and courage, and we're going to, and maybe generous with our teaching, right? So I just really feel like there's got to be a different way to move protection. I want people to really start thinking about that, because all this protesting isn't working. It's not working, relatives. We need to protect, and if we start with our homes, with what's coming into your home, the money you spend on what comes into your home, and then we start moving out to protect land, like those homes where a pipeline is 11 feet away from a home. It could blow up a home, and babies and grandmas and grandpas in a home. We just want to keep moving forward with good things in our heart and our mind. And we have a word in our language, hachusida. It's where our heart and our mind are working together. It's as one thing. Hearts and minds are together. We're just going to have to try to do it in a good way. I know that sounds crazy coming out my mouth because my name's Fighting Woman. But we can fight in a good way. And we can make it we can change the world if we Yehow. Yehow. This word means it can only be done together, relatives. It can only be completed together, to push forward together. Change a heart, change a mind. I don't think any amount of protest and fire and police fight is going to make it's just going to fuel the flame. We want to put that PSE flame out. Yehow. Relatives, it's everything. Yehow. Have anybody noticed the sky? Has anybody noticed that blue ain't really blue? It's kind of blue tan. Have anybody noticed when you look into the sky? Have anybody been in an airplane and seen this black, dark blue, and then a lighter blue, and then dirty clouds, like the clouds ran through a mud puddle? It's not really gray. It's more brown. Are you breathing fresh air, relatives? What are you willing to protect? What are you willing to protect? Are you willing to protect your children from that? Then you have to start somewhere. Might as well be killing a black snake, even if it's PSE's black snake. Protect all of those things. The air, the water, the earth, and your spirit.
Yeah, I so agree with you, Pamela. What has become so clear to me is the huge need for education of people in this, that you're sold natural gas as a luxury item, right? And you saw in the film some of these homes, thanks to Howard's excellent drone piloting, even on a windy day. And that kind of development is happening a lot in this area where the pipeline is. And coincidentally, there's also upzoning being considered in that area. So you put in a bigger pipeline, well, now we have increased gas capacity. So we can, you know, develop this area with more homes to natural gas. So I think there is such a big opportunity to educate people, just like you're saying, Pamela. If it's close to home, if my children are at risk for the health impacts, for the safety impacts, I'm not going to put it in my house. And we need to be getting the word out about that big time.
Well, when we talk about education, we also need to realize that the current education system is set up to feed corporations. Originally, education was set to make patriots, right? And so that the poor man could pay his taxes. He knew how much he had to pay a corporation. So we need to start thinking about real, true education and how we're going to bring that forward for our future and for our children. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Pamela, for your inspiration, really.
Why?
All of ours. Well, thank you. It's been really nice to, it's been really a good discussion. And because of the time, I wanted to hand it over to Stacy to bring us to a close.
Yeah, just want to thank everyone again so much for being here with us, for watching the film, for caring, for such a great engaging discussion. Thank you to all of the people again that helped share this event, to Howard for beautiful footage, to Neil for some beautiful photography, and of course Catherine and Sarah and Pamela for putting this together and making this film, and to everybody that's out there putting in prayer against frack gas and against this destruction too. We recognize that is part of this fight in a deep connected way. And so just hands raised to all of the people that have been doing this protection since time immemorial, and that are sharing knowledge with us today on how to do this better, since we've lost our own connection. So thank you all so much, and just watch for that follow-up email with all these links and some other ways to take action. And maybe we'll just, it's such a good experience, maybe we'll just all close out with a big deep breath together.
A big deep breath, but don't forget that the air is dirty. And the Texas air is greasy, and the East Coast air is smoking, and we just got done being full of smoke. So think about that, relatives, while we're taking a great big deep breath.
Mm.
We've got to protect. Hail, good night.
Thanks, everybody.